Hello everyone, I am Garrett Hall, founder of Karma Free Astrology. Link is in the description below. Today we're going to be checking out the natal chart of Will Smith. Now, if you haven't heard, Will Smith slapped the shit out of Chris Rock a few weeks ago, probably about 2 weeks ago actually, and internet's been talking about it ever since. There's been a huge discussion over whether he was right or wrong, whether he was actually defending, but I think that argument is dead now that Will Smith is actually admitting himself into therapy. I think he knows that what he did was out of line. He assaulted Chris Rock, right? But that's besides the point. Today I want to cover just a natal chart of Will Smith, and let's see if there are any reflections in his chart that showed how someone who seems to be such a high, morally upstanding character can do something so emotionally, something so reactionary, right? And this actually ties into an article that I wrote probably the day right after that smack, and it had to deal with the emotions, right? Our emotional nature is very useful, but at the same time, it's not the primary. It should not be the primary means of our decision making. Okay, and if you want to read more about that, links also going to be in the description below. We're going to be talking about Will Smith's moon and how that may have contributed to him doing something frankly foolish, right? What I thought was really interesting, what I felt, to be honest, is that Will Smith was a Libra, right? Because he has this difficulty severing his connection with Jada, and their relationship has been in the public eye for years, and it seems obvious, at least to me, that whatever the fuck they're doing isn't working, right? It's not healthy. It's not conducive to healthy children. It's not peaceful in the home. Like, it just seems like Will Smith is having a very, very hard time. But he is a Libra sun, okay? He's a Libra sun, and he has Venus and Mercury in Libra. And so this adds to his very charming, his very likable effect. People like to look at Will Smith. I mean, he's one of the most popular African American actors in the world, right? And that's not by accident. See, this Venus and Mercury, I don't want to get too much into technicalities, but this Venus and Mercury are actually towards the end of Libra for Will Smith. So in astrological mumbo jumbo, usually planets at the 29th degree symbolize some sort of soul mastery, some sort of someone who knows the lessons of that sign, right? And they're using the planet to express those lessons. So here, Will Smith has Venus and Mercury there, and Venus rules Libra, right? So Venus is going to already express itself in a dignified and an honorable and a respective manner when it's in Libra. But being at the 29th degree, it's like Will Smith has a very good innate knowledge of charm, of musical talent, and we see this with damn near every movie he made in the 90s. He had a one-hit single that came out that topped the Billboard 100s. So Will Smith is a very talented, musically inclined. He's obviously an actor, so he's mastered the ability of putting on different airs to sort of act a character, and his voice is very recognizable. He's Will Smith, right? Now, unfortunately, Mr. Smith has his sun conjunct to Uranus, right? And when you look at older astrologers, they really see this combination as very dangerous because, and this is a conjunction too. So a conjunction means that the two planets are almost at the same point, right? Like sort of right here, we have Venus and Mercury sort of at the same point. His sun and his Uranus are a little bit farther apart, but most people would still consider this a conjunction. I mean, you can see the aspect right here is forming. And basically, this means that Will Smith is very dangerous. And yes, he's very dangerous. Let me say that again. He has the potential to be very dangerous, right? Because Uranus represents an instability. It introduces instability into our minds, into our actions. Another significance of the Sun and Uranus is that Uranus adds an individual aspect to it. So sort of like a a uniqueness, an erraticness, an eccentricness to Will Smith. And we see this. There's no other actor like Will Smith. I mean, Will Smith is, he set himself, there's no other entertainer like Will Smith. I think he set himself apart as his own, category of entertainer, where he may not be the best in each category, best actor, best musician, best producer, but he does it very well. And I mean, the charts show it. Like, he's constantly at the top of the Billboard 100s. His movies are constantly being nominated for Academy Awards. And the point is that Will Smith, as we can see by his Sun Uranus conjunction, is a very unique individual. And he has a very deep desire to be unique, to express that uniqueness, and to be, and to stand out from the crowd, right? Like, that's just ingrained into his personality, his individualism, his individuality, I guess. But he's a very, very independent, ironically independent, yet codependent, thanks to his Sun in Libra. But we're going to talk about that in a minute. So we talked about his sun sign, right? I talked about Libra and Mercury. Now let's talk about the moon and Neptune. So the moon and Neptune, I also forgot to mention, although it is important that his Venus is in the sign that it rules, his sun is actually in its fall. I can't remember if it's fall or detriment. But basically, it means that he's probably not going to express himself very well, right? The problem with Libras is that Libras tend to lose themselves in their relationships. They tend to do too much for partners just to keep the peace, to appease their partners, to be liked, right? To be popular. And so, when the sun is in Libra, these people have to balance taking care of themselves and then doing for other people, right? And we see that Will is egregiously doing everything for this relationship, and he's not considering himself at all, right? We hear him we hear him say constantly that there's nothing that Jada could do that would make him leave, which any other self-respecting human being has a limit on what they would allow, right? Unfortunately, just as Will Smith has this conjunction here, he also has this very interesting conjunction with the moon and Neptune. And so I talked about this briefly. The moon and Neptune are almost different octaves of the same general ideas, right? The moon is the mother, the home, domestic affairs, also public affairs, right? So it kind of makes sense that Will Smith would be a public figure, especially in the media, considering Neptune and Neptune's boundlessness, right? Neptune represents the mob. It represents the ocean as a whole, whereas the individual is just a drop, and Neptune represents the mob emotion. And so Will Smith is great at deceiving. That's pretty much what this means. With his moon there, the moon represents his personality, right? It represents his it represents his reactional state, his instincts, right? Sort of his the things that he does with before he starts applying logic. The moon conjunct to Neptune makes someone very impressionable, meaning that they can easily be affected by people around them. They can easily, they're very sensitive, right? They understand those taciturn tensions or excitements that you might feel in the room when people are either, arguing or they're having fun together. And Will Smith is probably very keen on this. He's probably feels it very strongly. The emotions that are in a room or the emotions of people he cares about. But that also means that it easily affects him, right? If he allows it to, because remember, we're talking about the emotions. This is before logic is applied. Because remember, logic and reasoning, that's all Mercury. His Mercury is in Libra. So technically, he should be one of the most balanced individuals today. I'm not even kidding, because and we'll get into what this symbol means and why this is in Libra in a second. But Mercury in Libra is a person who understands the balance of give and take. They understand justice, right? Libra is Lady Justice, who's blind, who holds the scale of justice. So it's crazy. Well, I'll show you in a second why it's not crazy. But Will Smith actually could be taking advantage of his innate knowledge of give and take, of his innate knowledge of fairness and balance and of love and of justice. And I mean, he already clearly made tons of money from his musical ability, right? His ability to act, his ability to perform. So let's go back to this moon here. This moon is really debilitating him because this moon is his moon is already debilitated because it's in Scorpio. The moon in Scorpio represents someone who has an emotional need to be in control. Someone who needs to be either right or someone who needs to be at the head of something, leading other people, right? And unfortunately for Will Smith, I don't, call me crazy, but I don't think he rules or leads or controls his relationship at all. I don't think he controls his family. I don't think he controls any of those things. And family is represented by the moon, okay? So Will Smith innately does have a desire for control in his house. But this Neptune here opens his boundaries to the point where people can take advantage of him. Okay? And unfortunately, it's very easy because it's tied very closely to his emotional nature. One of the problems that we have when we see, outer planets like Neptune or Uranus conjunct to inner planets like the sun or the moon is that you have these external generational forces acting on very personal internal forces. And so it's probably not Will Smith's fault that he's very sensitive, that he's very impressionable, right? His grandmother, when he was very young, his parents divorced, and he started rapping at the age of 12, right? He used a lot of profanity, and, that was what he did. That was what Will Smith wanted to do. But his grandmother left a note after reading, his profanity-laden book, and she actually convinced him to stop using swear words. So that's why he was like the goody-goody two-shoes rappers, and he's always he's always trying to avoid swear words. But that wasn't his original goal. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying like a 12-year-old is going to know what they want to do in the future, but the fact that Will Smith is so easily impressionable by other people is what's causing him problems today. Now, Aries. Aries is a sign of the self. It's a sign of the head. So you think about Aries, think about me first, leaping before you, shoot first, ask questions, leap of faith, just going ahead and getting right into it. I should know, I'm an Aries. But the point is that Will Smith has a lot of important placements in Aries that I would argue he is ignoring. And in ignoring this is inadvertently creating mental, emotional tension, and to the point where now he's lashing out at innocent people like Chris Rock, right? And we can see this because in Aries, he has 3 significant placements in Aries. Let's start with Saturn. So Saturn in Aries, I wrote an article about it. Links in the description below. Saturn in Aries is about people who are very hard on themselves, right? So Saturn is the planet of limitations, challenges, tests, delays, patience, though, mastery, experience, leveling up. So Saturn is it's not the most enjoyable planet to talk about, because even when you do get what you earn with Saturn, it's not necessarily all sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes what you get from Saturn is what you get, and you just eat that bowl of cereal. However, Saturn in Aries, especially retrograde. Okay, so Saturn in Aries retrograde. I told you that Will Smith's parents were divorced, although they were separated, although it wasn't finalized until 2000, they were separated when he was young, when he was about 12. So Saturn retrograde, right? This little R right here means retrograde. That typically symbolizes a lack of a father figure or a lack of discipline in the home, right? So that's bad enough. Now apply a lack of discipline to someone who's already constantly beating themselves up, right? And that doesn't even make sense, right? Because someone who lacks discipline wouldn't be beating themselves up. But this is the dichotomy that Will Smith is. He has trouble with this because he's clearly devoting way too much into this relationship, right? As we can see by this sun in Libra. We can see this by the moon in Scorpio. But he's not finding himself. You understand what I'm saying? He's not lenient. Like he wants to be the best, and he really holds himself accountable. And that we see a lot with people who have their Saturn in Aries, right? But his Saturn is also conjunct to his 12th house cusp. And anyone who knows about the 12th house knows that this is the house of defeat, of secrets, of hidden sorrows. So I would imagine that Will Smith beating himself up is probably one of the reasons why he hasn't been trying to delve inside, right? Because what he's beating himself up about is his performance. His performance is to make you happy, to make me happy. So he's trying to keep making other people happy, and he's judging himself on his ability to make other people happy and his ability to, perform at 110%. And that's cool. You can do that, but have a sense of self first. And I know he doesn't have a sense of self because he has his North Node in Aries and his Chiron almost at the beginning of Aries, which is a very, very powerful point. So let's start with North Node. North Node in Aries, generally that's a journey to find oneself, a journey to find who you are, what you wanted to do, why you're here, right? Because the South Node and Libra typically signifies that in previous lifetimes we spent a lot of time in relationships, giving, appeasing. You spend a lot of time depending on other people to really show who you are, if that makes any sense. And Libras, if there are Libras watching me, you know what the hell I'm talking about. When you get in a relationship, you sort of melt with that person. You sort of lose small elements of yourself over time, and pretty much after a while you're going to forget who you are, because Libra is a very interdependent sign, not codependent, interdependent. Libras need other people to express themselves through those people. However, if those Libras don't have a sense of self, if they don't know who they are in the first place, they're not really going to be choosing relationships that express the best quality of themselves. And we see this with Will Smith. I mean, he chose Jada fucking Pinkett Smith. That's their relationship in the public sphere speaks for itself. I don't even have to talk shit. But this North Node in Aries also just recently received a transit from transiting Chiron, right? So this is Chiron in Will Smith's natal chart, his birth chart. But Chiron today is actually around here. It's in Aries, and it's around the 10th or 11th degree. I probably should have looked that up before I did this video. But the point is that Will Smith actually just went through his Chiron return, and we'll talk about this Chiron in Aries in a second. So he went through his Chiron return, and he went through Chiron passing over his North Node. That's significant. That's why he's going through all this healing, and that's why if he takes this therapy seriously, he could very well transform into a very, very powerful spiritual guru. And we'll talk about that in a quick second, right after this Chiron in Aries. It relates to a wounding in early childhood where we lose a sense of self, or we don't get to develop our own sense of self, right? So we don't get to find out what we like and what we dislike. We don't get to find out our favorite foods, and we don't get to find out what we want to do for work, what our career paths are. And this is something that's quite heightened with Libras, because Libras, as I just mentioned, are people who seek other people to express themselves. So if you don't have a sense of self, but you're seeking other people to express your lack of sense of self, you can see how you're going to end up in some really destructive relationships. And I haven't read Will Smith's memoir that recently came out, but I would imagine that reading that memoir, there would be a lot of instances where Will Smith absorbed the characteristics and the qualities of the people in his youth and used that to sort of become popular, because he saw it was popular. He saw it was, what people liked. So he did what he thought he had to fulfill that Libra need to be liked, to be popular, to be wanted by, a lot of people. And that works if you have a sense of self, if you know who you are and what you're contributing. But if you're lost in the sauce like Will Smith was and is, or hopefully won't be after he goes through therapy, you have a propensity to do some very violent things, okay? It's because Moon in Scorpio is not the most passive sign. It's quiet, it's determined, it's definitely silent, but it's also related to poisons and death. So, and violence and secret plannings and revenge. So yeah, Will Smith, when he gets upset, when he gets angry, there is this very real chance that he could stoop to some dangerous, illegal activity. I mean, he assaulted Chris Rock on that stage, whatever you want to say. He hit a man. I say all that to say that Will Smith does have one redeeming quality. Well, he has several redeeming qualities, but at this point, at his age, where he's definitely past his Saturn return, and he definitely hasn't learned the lesson of finding out who he is and of becoming who he really needs to be and mastering himself instead of trying to master this dead relationship. But he does have one redeeming quality, and that's what I said, where he gets therapy and he gets help, because it's Pluto. Pluto represents therapy and astrology. Pluto represents our psychology, our mentality, our subconsciousness. And his Pluto is sandwiched between his Uranus and his Jupiter. So his Uranus, as you remember before, we tied that to his sense of independence, his sense of uniqueness, his sense of of being erratic and of being different, right? Of being not necessarily greater, but of someone who has to prove that they are not this, right? So if he gets therapy and he gets a new sense of self from this, well, shit. I mean, Will Smith could, and then with Jupiter here, this could be a launch pad for Will Smith into the later half of his years, where he can help other people who are suffering from this codependency issue that he seems to have. He can help people to go into their own selves and find out who they are before they start going into relationships. I'd be willing to bet that Will Smith is going to have a lot of deep-rooted issues uncovered in this therapy session. If he takes it seriously, right? I'm just an astrologer, just seeing what I see on the chart. But if he were to take his therapy seriously, there is a deep, transformative, healing power that can happen for him that would not only boost his sense of independence, boost his sense of uniqueness, and Uranus also rules genius. It rules invention, right? So who knows, if he takes it seriously and he grows from this, he could probably create his own streaming service if he really wanted to, because Uranus also represents technology. But you get what I'm saying, is that he could do a lot more with his creativity if he takes this time to transform, to heal, to rejuvenate all Pluto related things and therapy related things. If he takes it seriously, he could really see a growth with Jupiter here. But I think I've rambled on for long enough. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you would like your own natal chart to be dissected, either in video format or for your own personal, use, so that you know what you're capable of, contact me at Karma Free Astrology. Links in the description below. And until the next video, adios.